It's the best phrase that we have in our language, man. Timing is everything. Timing is everything. And the timing for this 49er offseason already feels out of whack. It really does. Everything's out of order. We're going to tell me that you're going to have free agency and potentially then Brock Purdy surgery. Oh, and then OTAs so that they can get a look at what Trey Lance has done. And by the way, I don't even know what Trey Lance, what could he do the last 6 months?
Nothing.
He's cruising around on a scooter. So if we're to believe, and I do, for instance, just as an example, there have been a number of things out there, but the article that Albert Breer wrote last week with regard to what the 49ers were truly kind of thinking and feeling about, not about Brock Purdy, but about Trey Lance, that he was not the runner that they hoped he would be, and what they're now waiting on is to find out if he can become an accurate and effective passer at the NFL level, which, by the way, is not something you want to be talking about 2 years in,
right,
after being the number 3 overall pick in the draft. But that's where we are, and that's the answer they need, and they're not going to have that answer by the time they need to figure out how they're going to ensure themselves going into the season at the most important position. This is not a small development yesterday.
They may already have their answer, and that's something that we will be able to determine based on what they do in free agency. They may already know, much like the Warriors, I think, most likely already knew about James Wiseman in terms of whether or not that he could make an impact on this team. The Niners may already know if Trey Lance can be the quarterback that they thought he was when they drafted him. They may have already seen enough, and the fact that he's been hurt tells you that they've been unable to really see it in real time on the field in actual games. So maybe they don't know. Maybe they go into free agency and you don't know about Brock Purdy because the surgery is going to happen probably right around the time that free agency starts. And Trey Lance is just starting to throw again this week, according to reports. So he's just now able to be healthy enough to start getting back into it a little bit. So you got 3 weeks until free agency begins. It's going to be really interesting to see what the Niners do with another quarterback.
Well, I would love to get the pulse of the fans and our listeners today, 888-957-9570, with this news. And if you didn't hear it, the surgery, which was supposed to be today, has been delayed because of continued inflammation. Dr. Brian Feely, who's joining us in 2 hours, already texted our group, texted Kyle yesterday about it and said, no, this is not normal. Okay, so that's not good. So at this point, though, it only means right now about a delay of a week and a half. Don't know necessarily what's going to happen next there. And the other thing that was put out yesterday, the 49ers and Brock Purdy's group still believe that this is heading toward a UCL repair, not a reconstruction. So they still, at least at this hour, are saying there's no signs of this meaning Tommy John surgery. Okay, fine. So that's what we know, and there's all kinds of things that we won't know until this happens. But based on that information, based on the little bit that we've seen of Trey Lance, the other stuff that we've heard that the 49ers feel about Trey Lance, what would you do? What would you do? What does everybody want to do with the quarterback position now this offseason? This is incredibly important. Like, you've got to get this right. The opportunity is it never looks like this in a conference. Like, there are barely...
You're about to do Creed right now, aren't you?
There are barely any...
The league's wide open.
I was really hoping not to, but,
you should have.
But now we're here.
It fit.
Oh, I can't stand it.
The conference is wide open. You know that, Mark.
Yes,
it's okay to sing it.
Yes, and the 49ers are going to show them everything.
Exactly.
Yeah, because there just aren't that many good quarterbacks in the NFC, and there might be fewer when Aaron Rodgers comes out of darkness.
Right.
So
is he still in that retreat? I thought he was out by now.
I thought he's out, but we haven't heard. It's not. Right. There hasn't been white smoke, so I don't know.
Shout out the Pope.
I don't know.
Ash Wednesday as well played.
The Packers have a new quarterback or not.
Viva la Papa.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And we just lost the quitter Pope who died a month ago. The first Pope to ever quit on the job. I call him the quitter Pope. I don't know if that's his official name, but QP would be the nickname. But anyway, on this Ash Wednesday, I try not to blaspheme any further. It'll be interesting to see what the Niners do. What do? I bring in one of these free agent quarterbacks, one of these already played a bunch OG guys, a guy who doesn't even have to be anything more than a real solid insurance policy. Josh Johnson this year was that quarterback. Now, was he good enough? If he didn't get hurt, was he good enough to win that game? Probably not. So can you get a quarterback who's better than that, who can come in and be that security blanket, somebody who could be an ultimate clipboard holder? Like Case Keenum is the ultimate clipboard holder. Could you bring in Case Keenum, a guy who made $6 million this past year, and tell Case, look, we don't know about Brock. He may or may not be healthy for week 1. We don't know about Trey Lance. He may or may not be good enough for week 1. But you know what, Case? You can come in. You could be a quarterback here. You might start week 1. You might not start at all. You might start 11 games. Who knows, Case? Come on in.
Well, there's all kinds of uncomfortable stuff.
Gabby's out there.
Yeah. Oh, God, don't do that. No, there
Former
are guys.
Niner.
There are guys who can win you games, and then you think about it this way, right? Like, even if it is still just a UCL repair, and even if it is delayed, and even if this does now threaten the start of the season, you still aren't in a spot where you're truly acknowledging, at least they're not publicly acknowledging, the idea of Brock Purdy missing the whole year. So let's think about it in terms of even the first half of the year. Look at the 49ers the last few years. They've middled. They've gone 3-4, 3-5, and they still end up in the NFC title game.
Right.
I'm not saying that's ideal, but you don't need somebody to come in and set the world on fire. Like, let me tell you what I would eliminate from the conversation, because I know where our minds go as fans. Some of you, I would bet, are thinking, well, gosh, there's Derek Carr out there. I mean, there's trade for Aaron Rodgers, or the obvious laughter-inducing answer, Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh, I thought you were going to go Tom Brady.
No. Well, he's like, that was a heartfelt retirement, wasn't it? Have you ever done anything
We'll see.
I mean,
we'll see.
You ever look somebody in the eye and really give them the I promise and I mean it this time, and then 3 weeks later just go back on your word?
Yes.
You have?
I mean, you
With
haven't?
What?
I mean, you're a good guy, so.
Yeah, how many
and
times
according
in
to
your
the
life,
mean rankings, I'm pretty high on the mean scale.
You're up there.
But yeah, it's.
I don't know. I mean, how many times in your life do you do that? Where you're really like
1,494.
Really? Where you lock
Please.
eyes and do like a heartfelt, like this, I mean this.
You, as a former actor, you're telling me that you've never acted? I mean, you've
I didn't
never
say
lied?
never, but 1,500 times? That's almost every day
I'm just
for
lowballing
5
it,
years.
quite frankly.
I mean, how many promises are you giving to people?
How many times have I looked at you and said, "Oh, Mark, what a great take that was"?
Yeah, never. You've never said that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, you've never said that to me. I take pride in that.
Yes, I believe that Tom Brady has retired this time for sure. However, if Kyle Shanahan were to knock upon his door June 11th, after Tom Brady has spent all this time with those damn kids, I mean, who's to say there's not at least a sliver?
There's so many scenarios out there. I don't see the Tom Brady scenario being something people actually talk about unless we get to August.
What's more likely, Brady quarterbacks the Niners or Jimmy Garoppolo?
Brady.
Yeah, wow, okay. Because I don't think either one's very possible, but that speaks to your Jimmy Garoppolo belief.
The Jimmy thing has a few different legs to it. Number one, and I think you and I both agree, whether this other team, this mythical team, is making a good decision or not, someone's going to sign him as their starting quarterback this offseason. Like a real contract. Like here's 4 years.
Yeah,
and
at least 3, probably.
Right, and you're our guy. Like, I think he's going to get that. So that's number one. But number two, even in the absence of that, I get the sense that Kyle and Jimmy are just very done with each other. Like, I think if somebody else gave Jimmy the, dude, emergency break glass 1 year, I think he'd be like, I'll do that with the Titans over the 49ers this year. I just think there's too much smoke. There's too much history.
Yeah.
There's too many experiences. I just have to think that neither one of them are interested in that anymore. Now, the 49ers would be the one that would, I think, more quickly become interested in it if they just don't have any good options. If Trey Lance is not a player and Brock Purdy's not available, then I would bet on Kyle Shanahan's available wish list, Jimmy would be number one, just because they already well know how that they can win with him. It's turnkey, plug him in. But I got to think Jimmy would be like CeeLo Green.
Right.
Forget you.
Well, that's not the actual song.
Well, but it did. Well, there's a version of it.
That's the radio version.
Radio edit. And we're on the radio.
And I heard the radio edit actually for weeks before I actually heard the original.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, look at you, CeeLo.
Yeah.
Look at you.
How many months into CeeLo Green were you when you learned that the original lyrics were not Forget You?
About 3 months, actually.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's about right.
It's about when it hit me. But I think when you're looking at the QB that they would want to bring in, if they're looking for a QB 1.5, and we're using these numbers just to kind of relate to where this quarterback may fall in the pecking order, if you're bringing in a guy who's got real NFL life left in them, even if you believe in Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston is a guy who probably has, still a lot of good football left in him. Teddy Bridgewater is another good example, I think. Teddy Bridgewater is a quarterback who wants to go somewhere and be able to compete for the starting job. He wants to go somewhere, maybe where Jimmy Garoppolo goes, so it's Bridgewater and Garoppolo duking it out for the starting job, or Bridgewater and Geno Smith, or Bridgewater and somebody who's not a permanent fixture. So if you're the Niners and you bring in somebody like Teddy Bridgewater, what you're saying to the fan base is we don't believe in Trey Lance. Because what you're saying to me is, here's Bridgewater. Bridgewater's our guy until Brock Purdy gets healthy, and we don't believe that Trey Lance can be the guy.
I agree with your concept. I'm wondering about the size of the name that states that. Because Teddy Bridgewater is, like there's all these guys that are accomplished in ways, I guess, like we know their name. We know their name. Have they been starters in the past? Sure. Like Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston.
Right.
And, you mentioned Teddy Bridgewater. I guess sort of Jacoby Brissett could fall into that. I don't know if that flatly means, like, sorry, we don't believe in Trey Lance. I mean, Tom Brady would absolutely mean that.
Of course, or if you traded for Rodgers or you brought in somebody else, Derek Carr.
I guess I more want to know what they're going to do with said player. Matt Ryan, let's throw him in there. Ryan Tannehill. Are you going to bring one of those guys in to back up Trey Lance? And Brock Purdy is not available this year. That means one thing. But I agree with you.
Neither of those two guys, by the way, are free agents.
Which two?
Ryan and Tannehill. I guess they're going to get bought out as the expectation.
Cut. Yeah. I mean, the Tannehill one, I guess, a little bit more mysterious. I think the Colts are probably going to release Matt Ryan. Like, that saves that. Yeah, right. They're not moving. I mean, he makes a pretty good chunk of change.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to get rid of him. And I bet Kyle Shanahan, I know it feels super retread, but people forget what the Colts thought they were doing. When Matt Ryan went to the Colts, remember? It was like, oh, man, big old change in the AFC South, and the Falcons are moving on, and the Colts are turning into a now team. And then all of a sudden it was like, yuck. But what did Matt Ryan have around him with the Colts? I mean, by halfway through
best running back in football.
But he didn't play most of the year.
Yeah.
A receiving core that is very meh. And by mid-year, Jeff Saturday's your coach. I mean, Matt Ryan, if he ended up quarterbacking games for the 49ers this year, I think you would get a better version of him than you got with the Colts last year. I'm not saying it's great. Sure, he's old. But again, you're looking for somebody to just be a Band-Aid right now. That's all you're looking for, really. So my sense would be, if they end up in that market, I wonder if Kyle Shanahan would be intrigued by Matt Ryan. They had a hell of a lot of success together.
I wonder if Matt Ryan, though, isn't thinking in his own mind of a situation where he has more of a chance to compete to be QB1. And that's where I think this question is going to be most interesting for Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers because, yes, you mentioned Matt Ryan. And if he's free, if he's cut and he's a free agent, does he really want to go to a spot where he's probably going to be QB2 once Brock Purdy comes back, and he might not even be QB2 because Trey Lance is still here on a rookie deal. So if you're Matt Ryan, wouldn't you rather go somewhere like New Orleans or the Jets, a place where maybe you could compete and be the starting quarterback still?
I don't know.
Because you're not going to be that here.
But that depends on how things go for Brock Purdy and Trey Lance this offseason. And, oh, by the way, if you were one of these quarterbacks and you're having conversations with the 49ers, understand their conversation's different than our conversation. They know. They know stuff we don't know.
About Trey Lance.
And Brock Purdy.
Right.
They know stuff. They
don't know about Brock Purdy.
They know
more than we do.
They know more than we do.
But they don't know about Brock Purdy yet.
No, they don't. There's no way to know everything, but there's a way to know, like, they're still acting like they're not concerned. Publicly.
Right. Of course.
But privately, are they? And yes, Trey Lance, they've got a formed opinion. He can change their mind, but don't you get the sense that collectively right now their opinion is Trey Lance is not what we thought he was?
Well, we'll see in the next 3 weeks.
I think that's already their opinion, and they're open to him changing their mind.
I think that what they showed in their usage of Trey Lance in the way that he was last year as the starting quarterback, that told me what they thought of Trey Lance. The fact that they ran him, and I'll use the phrase ran him into the ground just to sensationalize it a little bit and to maybe get under your skin here in the 9 o'clock hour.
Man, not gonna work.
They ran him into the ground, Mark. Kyle Shanahan, the QB killer.
You can, especially when you advertise that you're about to do it, it works even
Coming
less.
up in 5 seconds, Mark, I get under your skin.
No, I mean,
when they ran Trey into the ground, when they didn't allow Trey to really throw the football, when they put in a certain package of plays for Trey Lance that they didn't have for Brock Purdy, that indicated to me that at that time they were not believers in Trey Lance's ability to be quarterback.
Of course you'd have a different package of plays for Trey Lance than you would for any of their other quarterbacks. Why wouldn't you? That would be weird.
Well, you would let a quarterback actually throw the football more if you had Trey Lance.
If you thought he could.
Exactly, and that's my point.
But also, like, to say it that way, of course, if you're going to draft, as they've even called him, a dual threat quarterback, why would you not call plays for the dual threat? The other ones are not a threat to do that. Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo are not. I mean, Brock moves pretty well, but he's not a threat. Even with Trey Lance not running as well as they thought, Brock doesn't run like that. So, of course, you're going to have different plays. They always do. They always do. This is a misnomer, and this is one of the things, quote unquote, the Kyle Shanahan system. Conversation we're having with Bonte and Joe. Is he a teacher? Well, of course he's a teacher. You don't think Kyle Shanahan's system changes also based on the QB? I mean, if you go to his coordinator days, this is the same person who has gone from Matt Schaub to Matt Ryan to Jimmy Garoppolo to Trey Lance to Brock Purdy with a little bit of Beathard and Mullins in between, and it's going to be different for each guy. No?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it should be.
Well, it shouldn't be as dramatically different between Trey Lance and Brock Purdy as it was, unless you don't have faith that Trey Lance can throw the ball like Brock Purdy was able to throw the ball. Now, can he change that opinion?
I mean,
you didn't believe that he could at that point, and that's why you ran him 13 times in Chicago, and you only had him do mostly checkdowns in his first 5 quarters of football. So can he change your opinion between then and now to where you don't go in the free agent market and find anybody? Because Trey Lance should be 100% healthy come August. There's no reason why he can't be healthy enough to be the starting quarterback of the 49ers if Brock Purdy's out.
I guess my answer to that, or their answer to that, would probably be and I'm with you, we all use the word should. Trey Lance should be the starting quarterback if Brock Purdy's out. But our word should is solely based on draft position. What other reason do you have?
Well, it's based on the fact that they named him the starter last year.
Right.
That's why I say should.
Right. Although that was a very different scenario.
Not really. They had Jimmy Garoppolo on the kiddie field.
Well, but no,
and they had Brock Purdy who beat out Nate Sudfeld.
But they had him on the kiddie field.
Right.
In other words, it wasn't
until... But this was their evaluation. They evaluated their quarterbacks all through the offseason and into training camp, and they decided Trey Lance is our best quarterback. Trey Lance is going to start.
I think that they obviously felt forced into doing that, did not have a better option. And this is why I stated that the day that they signed Jimmy Garoppolo, that it was a hedge. Because I think they got halfway through camp and went, you know what? Listen, nobody wants to feel this or admit this. Nobody wants this. They're disappointed in Trey Lance.
Well, we don't know that yet.
Yeah, we do.
I think they are, but I don't think we've seen enough to where...
They're open for him to change their mind back. Why are we having such a hard time with this? Why when we say...
Because he got hurt.
Oh, you're a Trey hater. No,
it's Trey hating is what it is.
It's not. It's trading.
The guy played 5 quarters, so I don't think that they've shown you yet that they are disappointed in Trey Lance. If they go out and they sign Andy Dalton, or if they sign a real veteran to come in here and be the quarterback.
You mean like they did last year with Jimmy Garoppolo?
Well, you said yourself it was a hedge.
Exactly, because they were disappointed in Trey Lance, and now they've said it behind the scenes to multiple reporters. He can't run like they thought that he could run, and he's not yet an accurate, effective passer. How can they not be disappointed 2 years in to a number 3 overall pick? Like, I think we got to just admit this. It doesn't mean that it can't. He can change it. He can Jordan Poole this. But, we got to just admit what's in front of us. The 49ers are not pleased in this moment with what they picked in Trey Lance. Or else we wouldn't even be talking about Brock Purdy.
Well, they went to Brock Purdy because they had no choice.
Right, but they wouldn't be going back to, and then they gave him the job forever. They're like, yeah,
well,
that's
not forever, but going forward, yes.
The presumptive starter.
Exactly, because he outplayed Jimmy Garoppolo and he outplayed Trey Lance.
If they were enthralled with Trey Lance, then this offseason at minimum would be an open competition, but it's not. I just think it's not.
That's because Trey Lance is still coming back from injury, and they haven't seen.
I don't think that.
I do think they're disappointed in what Trey has shown them so far, but they probably are as disappointed in themselves for their own appraisal of Trey Lance.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is directed at everybody. Right now, again, there's total openness to him changing their minds back and him developing, but I just think everybody in this conversation would be well-served to go ahead and admit that. In this moment, they're not thrilled with the pick. In this moment. I feel that. Do you not agree with that?
How can they be? How can they be thrilled by the pick?